Patience, because we are not a patient society in any stretch of the imagination. You know, we're an instant society. Everything's now. But patience gets a workout when God's answer is a no answer, when it's silent. In other words, God's answer is not always yes, and it's not always no. Sometimes He just says, not now. Be still. Not now. For me, you know, I've got more resolve now than I've ever had as the head coach of PC. Has it been a difficult journey? You bet it has. We've played 14 Division 1A football teams, FBS teams, in my 5 years as the head coach of PC. I know my record is not exactly what you'd want it to be, but you know where I get my strength and my resolve from? From guys like Donnell. All right, we're up there at Northern Illinois, okay? A very formidable opponent. It's raining. Place is packed. I mean, we are like in the lion's den, okay? But to see the look on his face, for them to go out there and compete at that level, all right, for 60 minutes of football, all right, you talk about inspiring and the power of influence, that's where my power of influence is. Those 114 kids I've got in my locker room, all right, because they are about the right things. And they'll show it up, they'll strap it on every Saturday afternoon. I don't care. Somebody asked, well, Coach, you know, how do you keep your kids up? How do you stay positive when you go up against those big teams that you guys are playing? How do you do that? I don't do anything. I don't do anything. It's those kids. I've got unbelievable kids. I've got the best job in America. I do. Because I get to go to work every day and be around kids like Donnell Williams. How lucky am I? That's where my power of influence is. That's where I get my strength from. But I've got more resolve now than ever. Because you know what? I know this. All the adversity that I've gone through, that we've gone through, that's fixing to turn. And I see it. I see it in my kids. I see it in the program. I do. And I've got more optimism now than I did when I came here in 2009. It's been a journey. It has. I'll tell you a story. This past spring, I was in my office, and it was one of those days, and these coaches know exactly what I'm talking about. It was one of those days where I was putting out fires left and right. All right, Coach Kirk, you know, talking about carrying paper, walking around fast, make it look like you know what you're doing. All right, I do that every day. Okay, but it was one of those days where I was trying to put out fires, and it just seemed like one after another. And I started feeling sorry for myself a little bit. I did. I was like, you know, Lord, what have I done to deserve all this? About that time, I had a gentleman walk into my office. Probably the last person I ever thought that I would see that day. There's a guy by the name of Jamie Moore. Now, some of you may know Jamie. All right, Scott, I don't know if you know Jamie Moore. You know, I don't know when you finished up over there at Clinton High, but a little bit older than you. Well, my first year of coaching, the last year that we had our last home night game, all right, Jamie was a walk-on, 175-pound offensive guard at Clinton High School. So that was my first year of coaching. That's when I thought I had all the answers. I knew none of the questions. This is 1990. That was me. Okay. Jamie walks in my office, and I'm sitting there at my desk feeling sorry for myself, and he says, "Coach," and I didn't recognize him because Jamie is kind of jacked up now. You know what I mean? Big old pipes. You know what I mean? He comes in, he's got a crew cut haircut. He comes prints in, and I was like, "Jamie?" He goes, "Coach, how you been?" I said, "Jamie, I'm doing great, man." I said, "You're the last person I thought I'd see." And he sat down on my couch. We started talking about old times. And Jamie was one of those guys that, you know, we tried to move him to fullback because he wasn't big enough to play on the line. He was maybe the worst football player I've ever seen in my life. Okay, he was terrible. He had no chance. Okay, but he had a huge heart. His chest, that heart in his chest was huge. And he wanted to so bad. And for whatever reason, man, I coached him hard. I did. I got after him in the weight room and out there on the field. And I was only with him for like 2 years. And then I left and went to Georgia Southern. Jamie finished up at PC, got his degree at PC. Kept in touch with him like you do with former players at times over the course of the years. And so Jamie's telling me his story. He says, "Coach, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and all that you did for me when I was a player at PC. I didn't think I had done an awful lot. You know, I didn't treat him any different than I did any other kid. And probably that's the reason why he was attached to me like he was. But he told me, he says, Coach, he goes, let me tell you what, he goes, I've been through some rough times in my life. And he said, what you taught me has helped me through this. I was like, really? He said, I said, what have you been doing? He said, well, you know, when I graduated from high school, or when I graduated from college, he goes, met a little girl, we got married. I started selling cars up in Greenville. And I put on a bunch of weight. I got up to about 280, 290 pounds. He said, just wasn't feeling good about myself, wasn't feeling good about what I was doing. He said, I told my wife one day, we'd been married for 3 years, and I said, you know, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And my wife looked at me like, you're going to do what? I'm going to join the Marine Corps. So for 8 months, he went on a diet, worked out every day. He lost 75 pounds in 8 months. Went down to the Marine Corps center there, signed up, went to Parris Island, and became a Marine. He said, you know, Coach, he says, I've been in the Marines now for 13 years. He said, I've been on 5 deployments over to Afghanistan and Iraq. And he's in these special forces, you know, where like they could be anywhere in the world in like 24 hours and kill a bunch of people and then you would never know they were there. He's one of those guys, okay? He said, you know, I've been home for Christmas. I've got 2 young daughters. He goes, I've been home for Christmas one time in the last 6 years. He goes, I've always been deployed over Christmas time. So I've been able to spend Christmas with my daughters one time in the last 6 years. He says, my wife had a stroke about 2 years ago, all right, and they're stationed up in Camp Lejeune up in North Carolina. My daughter has a heart condition. She's had 8 surgeries since the age of 3. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like melting in my chair, you know, because remember just about 5 or 6 minutes ago I was feeling really sorry for myself about my plight and what I was doing. He tells me the story. His father passed away the last deployment that he was on, and he's in charge of about 18 men, and they're over in Afghanistan. They're talking about going across the wire, and it was his ops. He had done all the pre-work for it. He had trained. He was responsible for all these young men going across the wire and coming back. His commanding officer came to him and says, Colonel Moore, he says, I'm so sorry to tell you that your dad has passed away, and I'm going to get you on the first transport back, be with your family. Jamie's first thought was, and this is Jamie telling me this, he goes, my first thought was, well, I've got an operation in 3 hours. He goes, and I've got 18 kids that I'm responsible for. He said, I'm going to go do that mission. So he's nose to nose with his commanding officer about not wanting to go home and grieve his father's death because he's got a responsibility for these 18 kids getting across the wire and back. Again, I'm melting in my chair, sitting there talking to him. We come back, I'm taking him around Templeton. I'm introducing him to everybody. I'm so proud of Jamie. You know, he's a Bronze Star winner. Been through so much in his life. And not long ago, I was feeling sorry for myself and my plight. God works in mysterious ways. He does. He sent Jamie Moore into my office to slap me upside the head and say, Coach, you need to get it together. All right? There are people out there, all right, that are going through a lot worse things than you are. And you need to be thankful for the position that you're in. And you need to make do of it. And Jamie Moore taught me that. And again, when he walked out of my office, he told me, he says, Coach, I appreciate you and what you've done for me. And I said, Jamie, I said, just you stepping into my office has done more for me than you'll ever know, you know, with my man Jamie. I'm gonna talk to you guys here in just a second, talk about the power of influence. At the time, I was a 22-year-old coach, just out of school, didn't know anything. But what these guys taught me, I was able to pour that into Jamie, and I got blessings back tenfold. Tenfold. 27 years later, I got blessings back tenfold. I talked to you about all those NFL guys that come through. It's amazing, you know, they do reports on college players. They do scouting reports. I have this effect on a lot of people. They do these reports, these scouting reports on college players, who gets drafted, who doesn't. And the two most powerful words on those reports is and but. And but. Okay? When you're looking at it, they say, well, he's 6'3", and by the way, if you guys are running that fast, okay, I need some help rushing the pastor Saturday night. And my car is parked right around the corner, okay? I got a helmet that'll fit you, I promise. One over here. The two powerful words, and but. All those reports, they talk about how big you are and how fast you are and how many yards you rush for and touchdowns and all that kind of stuff. But and are two powerful words, because at the end of that scouting report, those scouts, they talk about, and he's a good person. He does all these things, and he's a good person. And he does what he's supposed to do. And he's a good teammate. He loves his teammates love him. And he can be trusted. And he respects authority, he respects everybody, he respects his teammates. And he does the right thing all the time, maybe when it's not the most popular choice. And is a powerful word. And those guys that have a lot of ands at the end of those scout reports, guess what? Man, they get to show up on Monday night television and play Monday night football. But those but guys say, yeah, he's 6'3", he does this, he does that, but you can't trust him. But he won't represent your program, he won't represent your franchise. He may get you on the front page of the newspaper. But, so you guys need to be those and guys, and not be one of those but guys. The world's full of but guys. They're full of them. I see them all the time. Through the recruiting process, man, there's some guys you watch play on Friday night, you know what I mean? I say, golly, boy, he can really run, he can jump, he's big. He'd look good in a PC uniform. But then you start going through those buts. I want and guys. I don't want but guys. And those NFL guys are the same way. I'm going to leave you with two things. Because, my daughter, who's 16, y'all pray for me, okay? I got another one coming too. But I think in today's society, and I know Cassie's not perfect, but I try to teach you two things, all right? You guys need to be a good decision maker, and you need to surround yourself with good, positive people. Y'all listening? All right? Because this is important. And being a good decision maker sometimes ain't real popular. That ain't real popular. Sometimes it's very unpopular to be a good decision maker. And making the right decisions all the time and doing the right thing. You hear that all the time from your teachers and administrators and family and your parents. But you need to be a good decision maker. Be one of those guys in the halls that your teachers say, man, that guy makes our school better. Be one of those guys. Don't be one of those guys where they say, ready to get you out the door just as fast as they can. Give him the cap and gown. Get him across, get him out of here. Don't be one of those guys. Be one of those guys that brings value to your school, brings value to your team. And sometimes that's unpopular. I'm glad I didn't grow up in today's day and time. You guys, it is a challenge. I know it is. But you be a good decision maker. And you surround yourself with good, positive people, because you are who you hang with. Right, Donnell? You can't serve two masters, can you? It says that in the Bible. God talks about that. You can't serve two masters. You can't be the best student, be the best athlete, all right, and be this guy over here and be all these bad things over here. Messing with drugs and alcohol, behind the wheel of a car, doing stupid things. You can't serve two masters. You can't be both people. It don't work. You can't serve two masters, right? Can't serve two masters. But you surround yourself with good, positive people, because you're going to have moments of weakness. You will. You'll have moments of weakness. And in those moments of weakness, those good, positive people that you're with, they'll pull you up out of that situation every time and help you make a good decision. But those scrubs, those guys that don't have anything to lose, okay, that are bad decision makers, you hang with those scrubs will pull you down in that situation every single